Hopefully you've got to this stage without displaying any database errors on screen. But errors do happen, so it's important to display error messages when you're testing your web pages. Without them, troubleshooting will be far more difficult, if not impossible. But those error messages should be for your eyes only. When it comes to deploying your web pages on a live server, error messages not only look bad, but they might expose information that could lead to a malicious attack on your database. So let's introduce a deliberate error into details.php. Go into our editing program. Here's details.php. I'm going to scroll up to the top and I'm going to change the name of the table from arrangements to arrangement. That will give me an error. Save that, go back, mixed arrangements. We'll select one. And oh my goodness. We've got undefined variable up here, undefined variable. Oh, we've got mess all over the place. And this type of thing, obviously, is totally undesirable. But it's a good thing that it happens now rather than when it's on your real website. So let's deal with the situation. Back to the code. So let's go down to the beginning of the main div here. And immediately after the start of that main div, let's add some more code in there. And what we're going to do is to add a PHP block. And we're going to check if message exists. Remember that message takes error messages, but it begins off, let's just refresh our memory, it begins off at the top up here as an empty string. And an empty string is treated by PHP as false. So if there are no error messages, message will be false. But if there are error messages, message will be true. So if message, then we will need an opening curly brace for our if block. And I'm going to put some HTML in there, so we'll close off the PHP block. And we'll have an H1. Class will be inline block. And be honest, oops. So we've got a problem. And then we need to display what the problem is. So that's a PHP block, and it will be echo, and then we'll do a double quoted string. We'll have a paragraph tag there, followed by message. And then we need to close that if block. And we also need to have an else block. So else, and then the closing PHP tag there. And what we're going to put inside the else block is the rest of the page. So we won't display the page if there is an error message. So let's go down to the bottom of our div there. There it is. We need to have a PHP code block just with a closing curly brace. Right, let's save that and we'll test it again. Remember, we've still got that deliberate error in the page. And if we reload the page, it says, oops, there seems to be a problem. We're getting the error message down here, which is coming from the database. Table Hansel and Petal arrangement doesn't exist. Well, we know it doesn't exist because it should be called arrangements. Everything is looking reasonably good, but we've still got an undefined variable notice up here. So we need to get rid of that. Let's go back and improve our code once more. And in the breadcrumbs, that's where we need to make our change. At the moment, we're just echoing row title, even if it doesn't exist. So what we need to do is we need to check whether it does exist. And we do that, of course, with if is set. And what we're looking for is row title. Then we will echo title, but we won't echo it if it's not there. So we then need to put a closing curly brace there, otherwise we'll have a syntax error. Let's just save that, go back, check what's happening. There we go. We've just got a blank list item there. Seems fine. Oops, there seems to be a problem. So everything is beginning to look a lot better. But obviously, you don't want that type of thing to happen when it's a real website. So when you've finished with all of your testing, you need to go back through your error messages and get rid of them. Not get rid of them completely, but change them to something more neutral. So here, instead of displaying message, what we need to do is change that to something a bit more neutral. And we'll say that arrangement. Actually, we don't need it to be in a PHP block there, do we? Let's just get rid of that. Let's put it as a paragraph. That arrangement doesn't seem to exist. And then, of course, we do need to put in a opening PHP tag there because we took out that one before. So that seems to be fairly good. Let's just save that, refresh it. Oops, there seems to be a problem. That arrangement doesn't seem to exist. And you need to do a similar thing with the other page with mixed.php. Let's just quickly go back to mixed.php, and instead of echoing message here, we'll close that PHP block. We'll open that new PHP block, and in between we'll put something like h2 class inline block, and just sorry, there seems to be a problem. Now that should have dealt with most of the error messages, but let's just go up to the top of the page and introduce a deliberate error into the database connection. I'm going to change the password so we will no longer be allowed in, save it, and then go to the browser and load mixed arrangements. And oh dear, we've got this warning message right at the top. This is working fine down here, but we still don't want this type of thing to be displayed on screen. Now, if your remote server has the display_errors configuration turned off, then you won't see this. But some web servers don't turn that off, and if you can't turn it off in a configuration file on your own, what you need to do is to add the following to the top of pages that connect to a database. So let's just go to this page. Right at the top, before anything else, ini_set, and then in quotes, display_errors, and then a comma, and then also in quotes 0, close parenthesis, semicolon, and that will turn off the display of errors. So let's just save that, go back to our page and reload it. That horrible error message is gone. We're simply putting a neutral message out to people. Sorry, there seems to be a problem. Many PHP books and tutorials leave database error messages turned on, but as a good web designer and a budding PHP expert, you now know better.